Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar. On today's webinar, we will be discussing the refined advisors. So the refined advisors we use for our CFD trading. In other words, if we are people that's looking to trade, to doing trading more daily to weekly, then this is what we will use here. So as you can see here, I did go to encompass.sharetrackin.com. My username and password is already in, so I'm going to log in now. Once I've logged in, you will see it's busy loading everything. And then I would go to analysis. After I went to analysis, I will go to stocks. Wait for it to load. So depending on your internet connection, it can be fast or it can take a bit of a time. Then I would click on additional advisors and I would click on Sharetrackin 2020. After I clicked on that, you will note that there's a wheel in the middle that's spinning. It's busy loading the Sharetrackin 2020 onto the table below. So we're just going to give it a chance. If you do note that you don't have the Sharetrackin 2020 chart, you are more than welcome to email me at karel.sharetrackin.com or support@sharetrackin.com, and I will gladly add the advisor there for you. So I will send out my email address to everybody on the chat so that everybody has it there. Okay, I've just sent it to everyone. So there is my email address if you see that you do not have the Sharetrackin 2020 tab. Now, next up, I'm going to scroll down a bit. So, first of all, I would note that it says shares in current holdings and it's blue. So let's look at Anglo American PLC. You would note that AGL is in a blue color there, the code, which means that I already invested in this share. Next one is shares on watchlist. You would note that that would be like BID in a orange color. Then there's shares on WSL. So WSL is the winning shares list, like ARI. And the red asterisk next to ARI, that indicates it's on the winning shares list. And then the last one, potential strong opportunity. So this one is very rare, but it could indicate that this is a very good opportunity to go and invest in. So that one has a bit more algorithms that it runs to make sure that it is the best buy at the time. So as you can see here, that I scroll through this whole list and there is not one here, which indicates that not one of these shares are a potential strong opportunities. There is opportunities, but not a strong one. Okay. If we then go to the table below, we note we get the code. So each company on the JSE has a 3-letter code that's linked to its name. In other words, the second column I see is the name. So Absa Group Limited code is ABG. Okay. And the same for ArcelorMittal Limited is ACL. So next one I get is the closing price. So this was the previous day's closing price. So this indicates to me more or less in which value the share falls. Okay, so I can see if this is a cheaper share or if this is a more expensive share. Next up, I have the volume column. So volume stands for the number of shares that traded hands during a trading day. So this means that this was the shares that was bought and sold within one day. This one has already been filtered out to only give you shares with high volume. Next up, I have the Share T 2020 tab. So the Share T 2020 tab is my indication. So you would note that it only gives you two options. It either tells you open position or hold. So in the white block underneath Share T 2020, I would type in open. Reason for that being is I am looking for a share that I can buy right now. So tonight we won't physically be doing the buying process. That we will do in next week's webinar, but you can also refer back to the previous Sharetrackin Encompass CFD webinars. Direction. So there it tells me, because on a CFD, I must remember that I can trade both ways in the market. So I can make money when a share is growing, and I can make money when a share is dropping. Okay? It's basically reading your trend, and from there on out, you can make an informed decision whether you are going to go long. In other words, you are going to buy in the upwards position, or whether you are going to go short. In other words, you're going to open a position on the downwards trend. Okay, so that does sound a bit confusing. I will explain it on the graphs though as well. So as we see here on the direction here, all of them says this is a potential long opportunity. Okay, so if we then go to any one of them, I'm just going to take the first one. I click on the share. It opens up the security details. So the security details, if I'm not mistaken, we did go over it in the previous webinar. The one of 2 weeks back, we did go over the security details of the director dealings, your dividends, your financial statements, the market news regarding APSA, the details, your broker consensus or forecast, the snapshots, and the history. So this is all fundamental reasons to buy into a company. So it's physical research that you did, and from there on, you made an informative decision to go and buy the share. And that would also be your comment that you are going to put in. In other words, you read something on the market news, or you saw something on the director dealings, and that is your comment for buying the share, because that was your reason. Because you saw something positive, for example, there, and because of that, you decided to buy into the share there. Can everybody still hear me loud and clearly? Okay. So, like I said, that would then be your reason for buying into that share. Then, on the security details, there's a buy shares button. Like I said, that's next week's webinar. There's a chart IQ button. That is your big graphs. Okay, that's where you make your decisions. Then there's a charting tool, which is a smaller version of your big charting. We don't really use that one often, but you can go and have a look at it to see how it works. You have your add to watch list button. So let's say we went through the share and we saw, okay, it is a potential strong long opportunity for me, but it's not quite yet where I want it, then I would go and add it to the watch list and keep eye on it day after day. If it's fairly close to the point where I want it, I would maybe watch it 2 to 3 times a day. Just go in, check your graphs, and then go out later today. You go in again, check your graphs, and then you go out. And then you have the close button. So after you're done with the share, you click close, and you can go and view your next share. So let's go to the graphs now. I click on Chart IQ. You would note that it does open up a new tab on top. And as you can see here, I'm just going to minimize that one a bit. As you can see here, I have my moving average in, okay, which is a bit on a longer term there. So if you're trading shorter term, you can use a very shorter moving average to get more of a informative decision there. Then also I have my RSI. So you would note that my RSI might differ a bit from yours, as I have a black line and a red line. Okay. On that, I would then suggest that if you do want this red line, because it gives you a clearer indication, especially when trading CFDs, you want the first confirmation before your stochastic comes. Because sometimes your stochastic, like there, where it shows you it's busy crossing, your stochastic is a bit behind your graph. So if I look on top there, on that day the stochastic crossed, which indicates a bit of a loss to me there, where my RSI crossed on that day. Okay, so if I do want to add the red line on my RSI, I would go to Studies, Moving Average. I would change the period to 3 days to match up with the RSI. The field, I would change to RSI 3. The type, I would make it an exponential. And then I would say create. That would then put in the red line on top of your RSI. Okay. So if I then look at this share, yes, it indicates an upwards movement. Okay. But at this stage, I will not open a long position on this share. I would rather wait for the share and, in my opinion, maybe wait for a short. Why am I saying this? Because if I look at my RSI's lines, it indicates that it's going to cross soon. So what does this cross mean? It's going to come down. My stochastic is fairly flat at this point, which also indicates a possible drop. As soon as your stochastic turns sideways, we usually normally recommend to see first which way it goes before you start investing. And the other reason I will not really look at this company is because if I look here, I can see that it doesn't grow by much really. I mean, if I take it here, it crossed on 121 Rand, and there we made 128 Rand. Okay, so that was 7 Rand in a few days, depending on the amount that you invested and the gearing the company gives you, which we will elaborate more on in the next webinar. Then you will make a bit of money on the share in that couple of days. But I would have sold on that day again because I've made profit. So from there on out, I will not really invest or keep on to the share. Then from about there, which was the 10th of May, which was last week, and Monday, if I'm not mistaken. It has been fairly flat, okay? So there's not really much movement going on there in a day. It's a rand. There was a few cents. Okay, that day had a bit of negative movement. There was a rand's movement, and there was also about a rand's movement. So I can see that in the past week, there's not been really much movement in the company, which will scare me off a bit with the share. Okay, so some people did note that I switch just between the two tabs on top and I change my graphs accordingly. So I'm going to show you tonight how to do that. So I would click on my Sharetrackin tab on top there. I would close there, and then I would look at the next share, which is, let's say, Anglo American Platinum, which is AMS. I go back to my charting. I click in the white block on the top left corner and I type in AMS and I press my enter button on my keyboard. The wheel starts turning and the new graph pops up. How do I know if it's the new graph? It says AMS in the gray block in the left corner there. And then I know I'm on the next graph. Okay, if I do look at this share, I see this share has been falling for quite a while. I can more or less say since the 29th of March, this share has been dropping quite bad. It does look like it wants to recover though, but I would be a bit cautious if it was me that was looking at the share. I would be a bit cautious because of a webinar that came out last week on Thursday. The header was Platinum shares is a bearish correction pending. So automatically, if I hear bearish, I must see a downwards marker. So I would first go and look at that webinar and then come and make a decision whether I'm going to go in a long position or a short position. Okay. As I said earlier on, I will explain the long and the short positions. So let's start with the long position. I'm going to use the candles from here on up until there to make my point. On that day, if I look at my RSI, my stochastic, it crossed, it showed an upwards movement, it indicates a buy. Okay, I climb into the share with a normal buy. The share grows. Up until that point, my stochastic crosses, my RSI crosses, then I climb out of the share. I sell the share. Okay, that's a long opportunity where the share is growing. Then you get what you call a short opportunity. So it's not necessarily that you would be in the market for a short period of time. It's called a short because you are going in the wrong direction. Okay? It doesn't make sense if I tell you that when a share is dropping, you are going to make money. And that is why they call it a short. So if I wanted to short the share and I don't own the share, on that day, I would sell the share. Okay? The way you enter your position would define on which direction you are looking. So if you buy first and then sell, it means that you are looking at a long position, an upward trend. If you sell first and buy later, it means that you are looking in a downwards position trade. So I would sell shares that I don't own there. Wait for the shares to drop, wait for my RSI and my stochastic to cross again on a low point, at a lower price and then buy the share. So now if I think a bit, I would notice that it's a buying process in reverse. So between that low point and that high point, the difference is my profit. And that is how you make money. The next question that will pop up into mind is, okay, how can I sell shares that I don't own? So the best way to explain it is the example that I always use is it's like renting a house. You pay a deposit on your house and monthly rent. You can do with the house whatever you want. You can repaint it, you can throw parties, you can upgrade stuff, you can modify stuff, as long as you give it back in the same condition, if not a better condition, than what it was given to you. We all agree on that. The same it is with your shares on CFDs. You pay a deposit of an X amount, and each day you keep the share. You pay rent. But now you're thinking, okay, it's not profitable. You pay a deposit once, and the rent you are paying is what they call an overnight fee. So this overnight fee is about 80 cents a night. If I then go and work it out, it's not that bad. Okay? It's not a lot of money to pay a share to hold it, let's say, for a week, for 5 days. So then it's 80 cents times 5. I get my amount. Okay. Getting back to this share, like I said, it indicates a long. Okay. This is what a long would look like, but more there, I would say. Okay. Reason for that being is there it shows an upward trend. Okay. At this stage, because it's been dropping for quite a while, I wouldn't really buy into the share. And so I can sit here and go through all of the shares with you and analyze them. So this was the webinar for tonight. If there's any questions, feel free to stay behind and ask the questions later on. To those of you who are leaving the webinar, wonderful evening to you. And be sure to join us next week, where we will be discussing the buying and the gearing of CFDs and the selling as well. Enjoy the evening. To those of you staying behind, questions may be asked now.